Welcome back, everybody. Today we got kind of a special one. I am putting together a project for a very special YouTuber, cosplayer, whatnot. Anyway, um, they very recently received a Zelda Breath of the Wild sword, and I happened to find the files for the matching shield for it. So right now I'm just starting to lay this out and figure out how I'm going to slice this thing to make it work. Um, but anyway, yeah. So I'm just laying it out and going through the motions of it. I think most of this is going to end up being just completely solid because it's actually really thin for a lot of these. Like this is only 7 layers. Let's see if it's got any infill at all. Yeah, I'm not seeing any infill. It's so thin. But that's okay. I don't mind that it's solid for this. It really needs to be solid. Anyway, so I'm going to continue going through the process of slicing this and getting it ready to go. And then I'll bring you back when we got some time-lapse footage of it all being underway. Well, I still need to figure out which part goes where. I don't know. It's getting there though. I believe these pieces were actually supposed to be the translucent, but I think it'll be okay. I also made a change. I'm running dual 9-volt batteries instead of the factory power supply, so I found a 9-volt holder that would be easy to pop them in and out. And yeah, and then I set it up for just a standard toggle switch to turn it on and off, because the controllers for this thing are quite pricey. And I'm just hoping that there'll be enough juice to drive these this LED strip. But anyway, yeah, I'll have to look at the reference pictures for this to figure it out. But it kind of interlocks like this, where it has these little keyways that lock into the center section. But moving on. Alright, well, off camera I actually took and lined up all the different pieces of the blades and got them figured out where they're supposed to be and how they relate to each other. And then I matched that to the front and the back. Now you see me here, I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to clamp this stupid thing together. Ended up resorting to tape, which actually worked out pretty good to kind of hold everything in position. And then just a little dab of super glue. The original file for this that you need a bigger heated bed for allowed you to print this piece all in one go, but that would not fit on my current printer size.
Yeah, due to the different geometry of the front, just trying to get everything to actually line up, because of the way this redesign was done, the bosses stick down too much, so it actually kind of crowns it in the middle. It took a little bit of figuring to get it where it actually line up properly. Again, I did the tape trick like I did on the backside, trying to get it to lay down nicely. But also clamping it proved to be a little more difficult than the other one, just due to the confines of front end, or of the back there. I think I started with the correct piece, but after that I probably should have gone to the outer sections and then worked my way around, because that rounded piece in the middle actually gets interrupted by the outer piece. You know, the outer piece dictates exactly where it sits relative to everything, but lesson learned. I found a small mistake in the model file, and these little jewel circle pieces were actually a fair bit too big. They're probably off by almost 10% from what size they needed to be. So what I ended up doing is reprinting. You see the old ones in the background. I measured off with my calipers, figured out what size I needed, and then just scaled them down to those dimensions in Cura, and then just reprinted them. And it seemed to be working just fine now. I kind of wish I had actually installed these little mask-off pieces earlier on in the process, because the slight little bit of mismatch between the outer masking piece and the inside piece, and then just the dimensional tolerances of my printer, caused a little bit of a fitment issue. It was fairly easily resolved with a little bit of razor blade work and some finesse. Alright, now off camera I glued down the outer LED strip, which is some super glue, and also glued down these individual LEDs. And all I'm doing now is really just a nitpicky thing. I've paired off the LEDs, and now I'm just condensing the leads on them, so that way I don't have such a big mass of wires underneath. It's partially to reduce a little bit of the weight, but mostly it's to reduce the clutter and make it a lot easier to hook up to the power port that I'm going to install here in a little bit. through my testing, I found that the inner red LEDs didn't mind running at 9 volts, but the outer white LEDs did not care for it at all. So they're kind of a minimum 12 volt. I did find that they will tolerate upwards of about 18 volts, so I ended up wiring the pigtail in series, so that way I can get a little more juice to make it work correctly. And also I set it up where you can just straight up unplug the two halves, which will make it a little easier for when this thing gets transported later. And now here I am just widening out some of the holes. I actually found it was a little bit difficult to see through the hole to line up the other part, and later on I'm actually going to glue each individual blade to itself, because some of them are like the bottom blades in 3 separate pieces, so actually I'll bond all those together, just make it easier in the future. I did kind of screw up and put the front face, it's 120 degrees out of clock, but that's easy enough to fix. I'll correct it when I prep it for shipping here later on.
Well, this project's pretty well a wrap. All I got to do is add the 2 bolts, one top and bottom, for this piece here. One of the things that I added was, so it just has an on-off switch, no fancy electronics. It also has a power port, and let's grab the plug here. So if you want, you can plug in an external power supply to light the thing up. It does have red LEDs in the center section, and then glows out blue. Apparently these were supposed to be like a light blue translucent, and that was a mistake on my behalf, but it still looks cool, so I'm just gonna pretend I didn't mess it up for now. And if the individual that's getting this really wants the light blue ones, I would really like to print these all in one piece, because as you saw, I was gluing these pieces together, because when this gets transported, it's going to have to be transported in sections. So I'll probably split the 2 halves, take the blades out, and then put put the two halves back together and just carry it basically in 4 pieces, because it's a little unwieldy to carry all together. But the whole thing comes apart with a Phillips screwdriver and unplugging, so that should not be too big of an issue to disassemble on the fly and put back together again. But anyway, so I will leave you guys with a couple shots of this thing all lit up, and until next time.